Hey, New City, another week, and we are gathering together over YouTube in people's homes or by yourself. Look, I hope you're really well. I hope the week's been good to you. If you're watching this over the weekend, me and my family are on holidays at Gunnedah for the week. A kind of screen-free farm stay. We're staying together, and so we'll be back in a week's time. But yeah, this weekend we've got a real treat. We're going to be listening to an interview with Alan Shonasim and John and Kay Hodge, who are missionaries with CFM in Nigeria. We know John and Kay pretty well. They've come and shared at our church in recent times, and so they're going to be talking about what's happening in their neck of the woods. And it's part of NewCity's kind of, I guess, COVID response initiative that we've been doing. We've connected and partnered and supported with a handful of organisations over this time, financially, in prayer, but also relationally as we connect with them through our services. So this is part of that. So a great interview. Listen to that. That's going to be part of the teaching time there, as well as a short devotion and or Bible reading that will be included too. So that's coming up straight after this. Also as well, next week we are kicking off our Gospel of John series. So that's going to be great. We're going to be starting to get into that. There'll be a bunch of resources in order to engage with the Gospel of John. Myself and Mitch have started reading and praying and meditating over this beautiful Gospel. It's deep and rich, and there's so many layers to it. It's so sophisticated. It is beautiful. I encourage you to start reading it now, even just the first few chapters as we get into that starting next week. Again, if you've got any creative ideas that you want to get involved with, or you want to give to us and we can hook someone else up to do, let us know. We're thinking about different ways we can engage with this text as a way of meditating on God's Word. Also as well, as you know, we launched our church-wide survey last Friday night. Thank you to the handful of people, well, a big handful of people that have already done that survey. It's been really encouraging to see that already. If you haven't done it, there is still time to do that, to kind of share how you've been going in this season, how you've been connecting with New City. There's a link on the WhatsApp group or an email, or either text me, myself, or Al if you want to get that link sent to you. We'd love to hear how you're going, your thoughts, and it's really helpful for us, both Mitch and myself and the leadership, to get the heartbeat of what's happening for everyone, and so we can kind of pray and plan into summer and look at what New City looks like going ahead as in terms of gathering and everything else. So really keen and to get that feedback in the next few weeks, and so we can look ahead. We are going to keep meeting in a scatter-gather kind of rhythm for the next few weeks as well, so that's not going to change, but how we do that might change, so stay tuned. All right, I think that's enough for me. Hope you're well again, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay. Hi, New City. Welcome to I think this is going to be on YouTube, so welcome to YouTube, but more importantly, welcome to Kay and John Hodge, who we're talking to live. Even though we're recording this, we're talking to them live in Jos, Nigeria. By way of introduction, many of us know Kay and John from previous connections. But as we've grown in New City, we're aware that there's a few people that maybe not have heard too much about you guys, may not know everything about you. So just to get us going, first of all, welcome back to Australia via Zoom. Just explain a little bit about who you are, where you are, why you're where you are, and then we'll ask some more questions as we go through. So over to you guys.
Me? Okay. Hi everyone. For anyone that hasn't met us or wasn't there when we met with New City in 2019, I'm Kay.
I'm John.
I my background is I came out of New Vine. My dad's one of the pastors at New Vine. Had some long connections in the Hunter region as a pastor's kid. Please don't hold that against me. This is my husband. John is the son of Kent and Ruth Hodge, who are missionaries now in northern Nigeria, but have been missionaries in Nigeria for over 35 years.
Yeah, so I grew up in the south of Nigeria till I was like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And then moved to the UK. And then I used to help my parents while I was at university with some of their web stuff for raising funds. And then, so I went with them on a fundraising trip to Australia where I met Kay at the back of New Vine Church in Newcastle. Yeah.
And the rest is history. So we married in 2013, and then we made the decision to move to Nigeria, to Jos, which is it was like a new work that John's parents had started maybe 5 years or between 5 and 7 years before we moved out. They'd started like a new ministry output in the north of Nigeria with a view to reaching the predominantly unreached Muslim and pagan north of the nation, which is culturally very different to quite a culturally Christian southern part of Nigeria. And we moved out here in 2016, so that was maybe 3.5 years after we married. And then we've been here for 4 years. We had our eldest son, Abraham, in the UK in 2018. And this is our daughter, Eleanor,
Hi, Eleanor.
who was born here this year in May in Jos. So, yeah, that's our family.
So, Christian Faith Ministries, CFM. Tell us a little bit about what they do, and you're part of that. So what do you do as well?
All right. So they started in 2007, really as a Bible college. That was my parents' experience from the south of Nigeria. They helped to run a Bible college there. So they came up to Jos and they started a Bible college, but they came up at a time where, maybe like a year after they moved here, there was a lot of crisis in the region. The crisis is hard to really summarize fairly because it's part ethnic, it's part religious, it's part a battle for resources, and most of it goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years. So when the crisis happened, the Bible college was trying to think, well, how do we respond to this crisis in a Christian way, which is a really difficult question that obviously we wrestle with all the time. But for them, it meant they didn't just teach scripture, but it meant that teaching took a practical expression in the communities. So they started projects to care for orphans of the crisis. They started projects to like computer centers, which would bring Christian youth and Muslim youth together, both of whom were unemployed. That when crisis kicked off, they were the ones killing each other, not the leaders in the community. So a lot of these projects to try and provide a Christian response to crisis. And we moved over at that time, and some of those expressions were taking root in the community. And we loved that. And for us as young Christians trying to work out what does being a young Christian in the world today mean, we were really drawn to this crisis response to that was going on in Jos. And we thought we don't know how we can contribute or if we can contribute, but we really want to be exposed to this to see what the role of Christians in the world is. And so we moved out, and since then we've been involved in different areas.
So the ministry has over 20 arms, probably close to 30 arms now of different work that it's involved in. Some of those are to do with education, so schools and computer centers, vocational training for youth and young adults, and others are more like long-term sustainability projects, like a lot of the ones that John's involved in, small businesses that help to help the local leaders here to think about what is the long-term strategy of this place being an Indigenous ministry. So if currently there's what X percentage that's brought in through international donors, well, how can we increase local local funding so that this place has a long future in the way that it's been set up and to achieve the mission that it's been set up. And then there's other things like we have a clinic and plans for that to be extended into a hospital. We have rural mission stations, so John oversees mission stations in different places, not at our base, but in all over the northern states. I think we've got, how many do we have now? 5, yeah. And then there are other projects like agricultural projects. One thing that Kent and Ruth, the founders, John's parents, are really, looking into at the moment is agricultural economic justice and the impact that, large fertilizer companies is having in like taking opportunities from smallhold farmers, and how that impacts, does have an impact in crisis and instability in the region. So there's those projects too. So they're doing a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like the ministry's expanded substantially, even in the time that you've been there, which kind of leads me to, deal with the elephant in the room. We're all exposed to this virus at the moment. We'll talk a little bit about how that's affected the ministry in a minute, but just broadly, a quick summary of how Nigeria is responding, and particularly the local community where you are, how the community is being affected overall.
Yeah, to tell the truth, we haven't heard of anyone who has coronavirus, and we try and keep our feelers out there to try and we see numbers on the government reports. So I don't think we've been impacted. We might yet be impacted by it in a health way, but the real impact has been the effect of lockdown. I'm not making any giving a political opinion about lockdowns or anything. I'm just saying that it has affected people. People have lost their jobs. In the 2 months the government put the country under lockdown, people lost their jobs, and we saw things like crime increase as people need money to feed their families from somewhere. So there's been a real sense of unease since that time, which is easing a little bit now, but it's still definitely there.
And also other public health issues like malaria, typhoid, HIV. I in the last little while, I've been working in a kind of administrative role with the clinic personnel and, their management of finances. And when we were looking at our books, we found that during lockdown, our patient numbers decreased, and mainly that is malaria, typhoid prevention, HIV, and hepatitis B response. And so the toll of illness and the death rate on all these other things is, going up, and we're seeing that at a grassroots level. We read in the news that all of these illnesses are taking a sort of like they're going back in their progress, and we can see that firsthand in the lives of people that we know. So that's been really hard to see.
Are you seeing a drop in vaccination rates as well? Because worldwide there's a real concern about that.
Yeah, I guess so. Like I can talk from a personal level of the impact of lockdown on trying to get our newborn baby vaccinated. We've had to it's been hard to try and rejig appointments and get her safely to those appointments. And so we know from anecdotally from what people have told us that it's hard enough getting local people who maybe don't have a background in education to see the value of vaccines. That's a hard enough barrier and hurdle to overcome in trying to say you should get your children vaccinated for these things. So I think it's creating more barriers that are, it's already a hard environment.
Especially with the added controversy going around, all this stuff about Bill Gates and all this stuff going around has just added to people's existing suspicion of vaccinations and stuff like that already. So I think a lot of these areas have suffered.
People feel quite disempowered, I think. The lack of knowledge and their lack of ability to know what is true and genuine information that they should respond to versus what is conspiracy theory. That it is incredibly hard for the average person here to make an assessed case of that.
And when most people think of the internet, they just think about Facebook. Sorry.
Yeah, they just think of Facebook. They don't think of.
And you know how bad Facebook is for fake news and controversy.
Yeah.
Well, how has CFM had to adjust their programs and what they're doing because of the lockdown and the impact of coronavirus?
I think that largely because we're foremost an educational facility, we haven't been able to run CFI's Bible college. We haven't been able to run our children's schools. so all of the children in our crisis care home, they've just been at home, and what's been really great is to see that there have been technology has been utilized to help them. So teachers from our school have been sending lesson plans to the children in our crisis care homes who we made the decision not to send back to their communities because of the lockdown restrictions. And so they've been able to continue with their school, but that's had to put more of a burden on the staff in our children's home rather than teachers to do lesson plans. And you think about, we've got over 200 children now in our JOS home, and the caregiving staff now have the added burden of not just caring for them, but now educating them too. So that's one impact.
Yeah, another impact would be we haven't had a lot of students around. Normally we have 200 Bible college students who the ministry feeds every day.
Who live here.
Who live here on site. And we haven't had that cost, and a lot of the money that would have gone to that has now gone into building.
Yeah.
So we've been able to build new hostels and new classrooms.
So that's been a good.
Yeah, it's been a silver lining, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where the ministry was at the beginning of the years, we used to we had a temporary Bible college that we rented, and for reasons to do with our landlord, it was becoming kind of financially unreasonable. Didn't make sense for us to continue renting those premises, so we ended up. Ken and Ruth made the decision that we're going to commit to trying to build our permanent site so that we can do everything at our main headquarters. And so that has kind of been a blessing in disguise, the fact that we've been able to move forward in some of these building areas that we probably wouldn't have been able to if we if everyone had been here. Yeah. So there's positives.
Yeah. So I think that's typical of a lot of ministries and NGO work, is this kind of redistribution of resources. And I know you guys don't like talking about money, but how has support for the ministry
and for you personally
changed, if it has at all, over this COVID-19 phase?
In terms of what's been told to us by Ken and Ruth, who manage CFM's finances, they have seen a lot of great support in this time. I think that, especially from Australian Christians, there's a great sense of wanting to support the work of missionaries out in the field. And we've experienced that too in our personal support. So we're really thankful to our church partners and to our individual sponsors who have sort of rallied behind us in this time and not just thought of their own needs, but probably have thought how it's affecting us. And we've been really blessed, I think. And the
generosity that's been given to us, it means we can think about helping those who are receiving negative impacts of coronavirus, and we're in a position where we can support them in some ways.
Yeah,
that's right. And think strategically and pray strategically about we're in a crisis hotspot. So in periods in the past where finances and economics have impacted violence and violent outbreaks, okay, so what can we do to mitigate the risk of that happening in our region again because of what coronavirus has set us back in? So that's been great. We've felt really supported, which is great. When you're so far away and you can't see family, we've definitely felt like that that sense of our supporters backing us, which has been wonderful.
That's great. What about personally, how has it affected you? Yes, you're feeling supported by the support that's coming from your supporters, but in terms of your personal situation, has the virus affected you, not necessarily health-wise, but just in general? You're in lockdown like the rest of us.
Yep.
It's a hard question, I think, because we're constantly faced with people who are suffering much worse effects, and so it's really hard to stop and think, how is this negatively affected? I know it's a bad answer to the question.
Well, I think it's been a Sabbath. I think it's been a bit like a forced Sabbath. It's forced us to go. It's forced us to take time out with our family and to do the work that's in front of us, but a lot of that's been impacted. And so kind of a bit of a reset and a time of reflection and prayer and going, well, Lord, for whatever reason, we have this sort of period of rest, kind of forced rest. And it's forced our family to think about a lot of things and to ask the Lord where he's leading us in the future. I mean, we consider that we've been part of CFM for like 4 years now. We've done a lot of things. We've been thrown in the deep end in a lot of things as well, and it's been a fantastic experience. It's almost like getting a bachelor's degree in, I don't know, like living in an international context and trying to help and not hurt, I guess. So yeah, we're sort of praying, and we've had this period of asking the Lord, well, what would you like us to put our hand to next, Lord? I guess.
Well, that's a brilliant segue into the next phase of our discussion, because I know you have been doing a fair bit of reflection, and I also know that you went there initially primarily to learn and to see how you could contribute and to see what the needs were, and to obviously hear where God wanted you. And I know you've been doing some reflection now, and you've got maybe some news to share with us about some next directions.
Yeah. You're like the first church that was sort of like floating this with. So,
so this is really new. Like in the last 3-4 weeks, last month, Yes. So we were thinking a lot. What brought us here? And I think I was talking earlier about the response to crisis, the response to conflict, the Christian response to that. And so we've been thinking, like we said, the ministry has been expanding into many different areas, like almost 30 arms of the ministry. And although that's great, and it means that there's a Christian voice in many areas locally, the area we're really passionate about is the peace building arms of CFM. And because CFM is spread quite widely over different areas, we're really excited about the possibility of what could happen if we focused funding and we focused attention into the area of Christian peace building. And so from there we sort of talked to the ministry. That's
largely come out of our, probably our heart, but also our area of interest and study. Like I've been studying like a master's in sustainable development, and all the things that come up that are really interesting to me are how does the world respond to like this raised population of internally displaced peoples and refugees? How does the world respond to migration? How does the world respond to humanitarianism in conflict zones? And you've also just started a master's
Tonight is my first lecture in a master's in peace building and reconciliation.
Yeah. So like we have this, great sense of like when we talk about things and pray about things, like we would like to specialize and become, have a more in-depth look at how like what the Christian response is to these things, marrying like the intersection of faith and also global best practice on peace building, how we can be a part of that, how we can speak into that. So
for a while we've been talking to the ministry about potentially starting projects down the line while still partnering with CFM. And then recently, during all this lockdown period, we've been thinking about the peace building arms that the ministry has currently. And we floated the idea with the ministry of could we be more involved in those arms and potentially help with funding and potentially help with the program, with a view to us taking on that in partnership with CFM going into the future and growing that into other expressions of Christian peace building in the area.
And like they responded really, we weren't sure how they would respond, but they were really happy about that, especially both Kent and Ruth. But also the local Indigenous leaders, our bosses, they were really happy about that because they said to us, look, we'd like these arms to go further than they are, but we kind of feel like we're restricted with funding at the moment to take them where they can be, and we're not able to like give enough attention to them to grow them into what they could be. And so they were really happy about that as like a way that we could move forward in our partnership with CFM. For a while they were kind of trying to work out our role, like because we've been here for a number of years now. They ordained us as pastors last year, and we were like, we felt honored that they wanted to do that and that they would think of us in that way. And then they were thinking, should we put them in more of a senior leader role in the existing work? And we were kind of like, well, I don't know if you want to speak into this, but the sense of
I think for us it's important that this ministry remains Indigenous. That's always been the vision since it started, to have Indigenous leaders. And we felt like if we were put in that level with the other Indigenous leaders, that the funding that we're bringing in would always mean that our voice, although it could be described as equal, it would always, we would never know genuinely whether we were being listened to because of the funding behind us, or whether because we were making valid points. So we didn't really want to be in, it was an honor, but we didn't think that was an appropriate place for us to be, really.
Yeah, and it was probably a better, like, long-term relationship if we represented like a conduit of funds and also some accountability structures to local Indigenous people who have a lot more experience and expertise in working at a programmatic level than we are ever going to be able to do. And so that's kind of where we kind of feel our role is.
And moving into this, what we want to do in the future, we're sort of thinking about our roles in terms of fundraising, accountability, and as we specialize in the areas we want to specialize in, evaluation and analyzing the projects to make sure they're having the impact that we would like them to have, that our supporters would like them to have.
And also that they need, as in whether, they're actually helping on the ground and whether we can measure that. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Singing from my songbook, you know that.
Sorry?
You're singing from my songbook. I'm conscious of our time, but I just want to say that Sean and I are really excited about this, and I'm pretty confident NewCity will be excited about this, because you guys made a real impact when you spoke to our church a while back, and it was that sense of getting engaged in peace building and peacemaking that captured many hearts. So I'm sure NewCity will be really excited about this. How can we help? How can we help right now?
Well, at the moment we're like going through the costings of the existing projects. So they have 6 computer centres currently, with a view to opening more, and also other initiatives that have like offspring or will come out of our work in these communities. So at initial evaluation is that it probably costs around 25,000 Australian dollars to run those 6 centres fully as they are now. We're probably about halfway funded in terms of what our existing support from NewCity and other churches and individuals that get behind us. We're probably about halfway there. So we're needing to increase in the next 12 months by probably around 13,000 Australian dollars to fully fund that. And then obviously our hope and intention would be that we would be able to fund new things in the future too. So that's one very practical need that we have. Also prayer. And like wisdom, that we'd know what direction to take. Currently trying to work out how we structure ourselves. We're looking at trying to obtain charitable giving status through potentially a partner organisation that can provide that. We need some wisdom to know what opportunities to take and what's the best direction moving forward as our own, I guess, entity in partnership with CFM. So all those things are some practical ways that you can help us.
And your personal financial support, is that being sustained okay?
Yeah, we're praising God that our family is, we're fully funded in terms of our family's needs. And when I'm talking about the money that, how far funded we are, that's how much of our personal support we've actually been able to put in. So it's like $13,000 from the support that we've been getting. That's sort of like ministry discretionary. Right. So that's great. So thank you, NewCity, and thank you everyone for getting behind us. It's been able to release us to do a lot of things and to think about where the Lord's leading us to. Yeah. Do you want to have anything to add?
I think we're praying for wisdom and knowing how to navigate this relationship with CFM going forwards.
Yep.
We've asked them to create guiding principles for the project and asked them to consult on any decisions that we make in the next year to 2 years as we try and take on this project. But really working out our relationship with CFM going forwards, we need a lot of wisdom in that, I think. So prayer would be much appreciated.
Yeah.
I think if we can guarantee at least that, and hopefully we'll be able to guarantee a bit more in the near future. So we're going to stop the formal part of this now so that we can keep it to the 20 odd minutes that we were asked to record. So
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. I'm sure New City will continue to love you and support you. And so we're excited about your new venture. And I'm sure we'll be able to get behind that in many different ways. So thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, New City. Bye.